Join us on the fearless pursuit of self-discovery and growth.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
Hello. Welcome back. You are listening to Ivy Unleashed, here with Brooke and Andrea, and a very special guest in the house. Today is an amazing day, and you guys are about to hear an incredible story. I am so excited.
Yes, we are here with Kristine Herbert. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Thanks for having me.
Kristine Herbert is my sister-in-law.
And my cousin. She's married to my cousin. So she's my cousin.
Yes. And Kristine just happens to be probably the funniest person on the planet. Mm-hmm. Also very inappropriate. And so, who knows what you're going to get today? A little bit of serious, a little bit of sass, a little bit of inappropriateness. Who knows?
Buckle up.
So today we went on the road again. We are at Lake, Wisconsin, visiting Kristine at her parents' lake home. So thank you for having us here.
Thanks for coming. I'm excited. I'm excited for even the after party.
Yes.
Kristine, not only is she hilarious, a little bit inappropriate, but this woman has a story. Kristine is open to sharing her story with you guys and hopes that it's going to leave you as inspired as it has left us.
I'm finally ready to share it. 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, I was so closed off to all of this, and now I'm comfortable with it, and I'm ready to share it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy for you because, I've been with you along on this journey. I could cry right now. I have a box of tissues behind me. You have been through so much, so much. And I know that your coping mechanism is to make inappropriate jokes and laugh, and that's wonderful, and that's what I love about you. But I really want the listeners to hear kind of how this rough patch started. I know it actually started here beautifully on your wedding day with Brandon on this lake. And right as they said, I do, it started to rain. It was like the most romantic thing ever. And it was a beautiful, beautiful day. But it started out blissful. And then you've had a rough road since then. So kind of walk us through where it went from there.
So met a great guy, had a great job. I'll still have a great job. And, your expectations are a lot of things, and you don't realize that things can go, you don't think about that things can go not how you planned, obviously. Professionally, I did not feel like things were going great, and we were doing the next normal step. Everything we wanted was to start trying to have a family, and that wasn't going anywhere. We tried for a year, and then all of a sudden, I was pregnant. We went to our 8-week appointment. I was like, you know what? The career stuff doesn't matter. This other thing is working out, and it's amazing. Saw the heartbeat, had all these grand plans, instantly started thinking about strollers and whatever. And then the words fetal demise came into our life, and you don't expect that. I was in the stairwell at work when I got that news, and we just took off and then had some surgery, and then we're like, okay, I guess this sucks. So after the miscarriage, we planned our first backpacking trip to California. And then all of a sudden, I got pregnant again. And I'm like, okay, I talked to a doctor. I'm like, can I do this? They're like, yep, you can do this. Just you can't take ibuprofen because you usually just hurt after walking so much. Cool. We did this amazing backpacking trip in the High Sierras in California with a good friend of Brandon's. And then by Labor Day, fetal demise was coming back into our life again. And that sucks. Had surgery again. And now it's okay, this isn't going to work. And where do we go from there? Okay, I guess we're not going to have kids. That's fine. We have amazing nieces and nephews, one nephew at that point. And that's what our life's going to be. So through all this, going back a little bit is we tried to get pregnant. Okay, that didn't work out for a year. Let's go to Australia, New Zealand. And then we really went after it again. And then we went to Thailand. So when I first met Brandon, I was not into traveling. I had barely been on a plane. His family had been everywhere. And I love traveling. I love it.
So you're trying to get pregnant, having these miscarriages, awful time in your guys'
everyone
life.
around me is having kids.
Yeah. Ugh. And so you guys decide, okay, let's bring some joy. What do we love doing? You and Brandon are both avid travelers. Talk to us a little bit about what travel was to you guys during these moments and why you went to travel.
We started traveling and backpacking and really just doing things that, this is going to sound terrible, that people with kids can't do as easily. We're like, okay, we don't have that, so let's do the things that we can do right now. And that was going overseas and going super remote into the mountains, and it was amazing.
And living on a boat for a week in the middle of the ocean and diving.
Yes. And
not that I want to do those things at all, ever. But yeah, you can't take, I mean, I guess maybe you could.
You'd have to have a babysitter, maybe.
Right.
And like, so back to a little bit of the professional part, I kind of like gave that up. Like, I'm like, that is not even a priority. I still have a great job. I'm a good worker. I'm doing a great job at work. I'm just not passing this stupid test that I need to pass. And I got into diving. Like, I had already been certified. I'm like, Brandon, let's do advanced and then let's do rescue diver. I'm like, let's dive into that. Like,
Literally.
let's literally dive into that. And I don't know. Then I started feeling better. I'm like, I can't pass a test for my professional life, but I can rescue you. I can search for your body underwater if necessary.
You found things that challenged you and you had that sense of accomplishment.
Yes. And I succeeded at that. Like, I just felt like for so long I was not succeeding at anything.
So give our listeners a sense of time. Like, how long was this?
5 years.
5 years.
A half of a decade of trying professionally to pass a test multiple times and trying for a year to get pregnant, some miscarriages, and just half of a decade was spent not succeeding.
I think something to think about that a lot of people don't, like, you think of these 5 years and yeah, you had a miscarriage, so you went and did something cool, but a lot goes into that time of emotional stress, right? And physical healing and walking around at work and nobody even knows what you're going through. I mean, you were like silently suffering so many years, and it was really hard to be one of your people because the people that actually lived next to you had no idea what you were going through. No. And you're actually, as much as you're an open book, you're also very private.
Very private.
And it's hard for you to be vulnerable. And so it was a time for you, I feel, that I felt like you were so alone, and there's just like, I felt like there was nothing I could do, you know? And my heart just ached for you because you were doing these awesome things, but then you'd have these setbacks and you'd be physically in pain or struggling and then trying to do this. And so I just feel like now it feels like this short time, but it was years and years and years.
The whole beginning of my marriage, our marriage was, it's this like super happy newlywed time. And it was really happy. It really was happy when I like think back on it, but it was really hard.
Like, and what is everybody asking you?
When are you going to have kids? Everyone's asking that. And it's part of our society. We ask that. And I do think from 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever that was, to now, definitely people are more open. Like, I am hearing other people suffering through things. Like, I thought I was supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to not tell anybody for 12 weeks because you could have a miscarriage. Oh, so now I'm going to just do that all in secret and nobody's even going to know. And people are going to keep asking me, when are you going to have kids? So just get it out. Like, a life is beautiful. And like, if you're having joy from one moment, share it. And if it goes away next week, at least you got to have the joy. Like, nobody knows how joyful Brandon and I were in the moment when I'm like, it was a Monday morning and I'm like, Brandon, look, he's like, what? And it was like, I wish we would have gotten to share that with people. Yeah. Because it was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, another beautiful part of your story is that you were, basically at the end of this road with trying to get pregnant, and you had some big decisions to make. So can you kind of walk us through the end of this road when I come up to you in Florida and kind of where you're at and then where it went from there.
So after 2 miscarriages, we had some genetic testing done, and it turns out I have a little bit of chromosomal swap going on. Like, good thing I took AP Bio, and it's the only reason I understood the doctor explaining this to me. My chromosomes are kind of messed up. It's actually kind of a miracle that I'm here. I like to consider myself an X-Men because, like, seriously, Brandon and I drove to South Dakota, like, thinking, what's my superpower? I must have a superpower because it's not going to work out. We ended up, I never, ever, ever wanted to do this. Brandon didn't want to either. We did IVF. We got backed into a corner, but we really wanted to have a family. And in our minds at that point, adoption was not something we wanted to do. And so we went for it. We did IVF. Now, you're afraid of sharks. My biggest fear is needles. So I'm like, I don't think I can do this. But okay, I'll take 3 shots a day to the stomach. And actually, this one's kind of funny. The very first day of doing IVF. So Brandon is the one who's like, I would like get the needles ready. Brandon's the one who would like shove them into my stomach.
How romantic.
So romantic. So he did the first one, but never pushed the medicine in.
No.
He's like, I think I did. I'm like, Brandon, you didn't push this in. So he had to like jab me again. The very first moments of IVF was a double shot because Brandon didn't.
Gotta love him.
So we did IVF. It was really hard. It was scary. It was uncomfortable. There became a point when Brandon was out of town and I had to like start taking this extra shot right in that moment because it was daily doctor appointments, blood draws every day, ultrasounds. And I had to call a friend from work and be like, I need a needle put in my stomach. I cannot do it. So she's like, come over right now. She had just had a root canal. I go over to her house and she helps me out, jabs a needle in my stomach. I go back to work. We're still in the hope mode. Like this whole process was like hope, 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 no hope, no hope, 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 no hope, no hope. And like, so we're still in hope mode right now. So it's like, it sucks. The needles suck. And they were going to do all their things. And then we had great results from this. We had like 6 embryos. And they grew them for a couple weeks and we had great results. I apparently am a chicken. I create a lot of eggs and we had 6 embryos and everything was growing great, everything. And then they genetic tested all of them and none of them were viable. Like they were all like missing pieces of chromosomes. So like it just was never going to work out. And we were in Florida on vacation and everybody was at Disney World and Brandon and I were at his grandma's and it was Friday the 13th, which is a great Friday. And I got a call at 10 a.m. while we were just about headed to the pool at his grandma's house. And it was the doctor saying, nothing is viable. And I was like, okay. So I made a deal with the bartender and I bought the bottle of champagne instead of buying individual mimosas. And then the family showed up and it was a really hard day because it kind of ended biological children for Brandon and I. And it was really hard. And then that night we bought season passes for skiing for the next season because it was actually the last day you could get like the super discount for skiing. And we're like, okay, we can't have kids. So let's get season passes for skiing.
I can't even imagine what that was like. And I was living in Florida at the time with you. Whole family was there. Where do you even go from there?
Well, that was April. And by May 5th, we booked a trip to climb Kilimanjaro.
Which is where?
In Africa, in Tanzania. Like that was never even on my like radar of things to do. I'm like, okay, let's go do this. And we actually booked it to summit on New Year's Day of 2019 because I'm like, so many people do changes, resolutions over New Year's and we could have summited at any moment. But for me, I'm like, I need a summit on New Year's Day. I need to like refresher everything.
You deciding and picking New Year's Day clearly represented something for you.
Right. It definitely did. Like, I don't think it meant as much to Brandon. I was like, I don't care if we have to pay a premium to summit on New Year's Day. I need to summit Kilimanjaro on New Year's Day. And then I find out that it's like a 50% pass rate on Kilimanjaro. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I fail? So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to work out because the only way I work out is if I like have something like that to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So from an outsider's perspective, you know, being in your life, this looks like just another trip. It looks like an extreme one, but you've already done extreme things. You've been to Australia, you've been to Thailand, you've been all over. But I remember sitting down with you at a bonfire and you said, Andrea, nobody knows how much this means to me. And so can you talk me through that conversation? Because it was heart-wrenching to hear how you were feeling about it.
I had a lot riding on that summit. I just felt like I was failing everything. Like the work thing that wasn't even anything big at that point, but I was basically just told, you are not worthy of procreating. Like mushrooms procreate, like dandelions procreate. Like I felt, you are not worthy. There is something so wrong with you. You can't pass on anything. And just felt like I need to do something. And everything is good. I have a very good life. Everything is actually great, but I just felt that everything was wrong and I needed to personally do something, and it needed to be New Year's Day. And if that didn't, I became so nervous that I wasn't going to make it. Like I climbed things. I done backpacking. I've done a lot of things, but like for some reason in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make this. And I was nervous about who I would become if I also failed at that. I was like, I don't know. I'll probably end up in Tanzania jail because I will go off the wall.
But clearly the reward was greater than the risk for you. You knew that it was worth it. What did you think was waiting on the other side for you if you did climb it and summit?
I don't know. I just needed to do it. And Brandon always wanted to do it. And I'm like, I don't even know where Kilimanjaro is. And he's like super geography man. And we like went for it. And so that summer we did a 5-day backpacking trip in Wyoming. And that was actually like just to prepare for Kilimanjaro. And we took our dog, we went to Wyoming, and I called this place Magic Land. I actually don't even want to talk about it because I don't want anybody else to go there. But it moved me so much that I like wrote this book for my nieces and nephews. And so once all this bad stuff went down, we booked this trip to Kilimanjaro. And I'm like, okay, let's go on this super backpacking trip. And so that was part of the journey to Kilimanjaro, was this other backpacking trip. And now I'm in love with the Wind River Range in Wyoming. And I wrote this book, and it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Like I've been everywhere, and I still think the Wind River Range is the most beautiful place that I've ever been to. And so we're at this point in our life when we're not going to have kids, and we go to this family reunion in South Dakota. And on our way driving back, we both we looked at each other and we're like, we should adopt. And it was July. So April is when we got all the bad news, and we booked Kilimanjaro, bought all our ski passes. We went to this backpacking trip in Wyoming. And then all of a sudden we're at the end of July and we're like, we really, really still want a family. And so we both got on board with adopting. And throughout this whole process, we weren't going to do IVF. We weren't going to adopt. And like, you can change your mind. You can change your mind. You can say one thing and you can always change your mind. And so we started Googling that and got ourselves signed up with an adoption agency while we're still now preparing for this trip to Africa.
So you used Wyoming as training. How else does one train to climb a mountain?
You just got to be fit, and you have to prepare for kind of like a marathon. They say most of it is mental. Obviously, you have to be physically fit in order to do it. And it actually has nothing to do, like altitude sickness can hit anybody. So you don't know. You can train your little heart out and you start getting altitude sickness and they send you down and you're done. And you can be fine 5 times and then the next time you're sent down. And
it sounds a lot like pregnancy.
Yeah,
you can be as fit as you want. You can be 30 weeks and it can still fail.
And you can have a good job and all the means to support this little baby, but nope, you don't get it.
So being sent down, what does that mean?
So we signed up with a company called Ultimate Kilimanjaro, and we picked a reputable company because they have like this great success rate with climbing. but they do health evaluations every morning and every evening. They check your pulse ox and they ask you these questions because altitude sickness can hit you in different ways and it's very dangerous. And you don't know. And then all of a sudden you have this thing on your finger, and if your oxygen is not where they want it to be, they send you down, like, because they don't want you to die. I also don't want to die. And so you can't control that. So like on our journey up, like there were like, not necessarily in the beginning, but like later, closer to summit day, there were like, there's a girl crying on a rock because she's being sent down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's not me. And so we get to Africa, and the rules for this outfitter that we went with are you have to have a pulse under 100, and they start evaluating you at this conference room table at this hotel we were staying at. And I'm like, okay, my pulse is under 100. Like, I am a little bit of a hummingbird, and I ride at like 80 when I'm sitting. It's probably like 100 right now, but so I'm sitting at this conference room table with everybody we're going to do on our, like, who's going to be on our trip with us, and we're all going over food allergies and things like, if you're a vegetarian, accommodate that. And they're going around the room, and they're putting this pulse thing that like also does like your oxygen levels, and I'm like, they put it on my finger, and I'm at 100.
Oh no.
I literally
right off the bat in a conference room at like the base of Kilimanjaro. Like, so they put it on, and like everybody's staring at me. I'm like, I'm not even going to get to do this. Like, I'm going to have to find something to do for 7 days while Brandon does this. And like, as we're sitting there, it goes to 140. Like, we literally all just like watch it go up. And I'm like, and they wrote down 98. Oh, it was low. Like, they took it later on, like when I like calmed down. I'm like, you cannot look at me while my pulse is getting taken. And like, I have this issue at the doctor's office. I'm like, just don't look at me. Like as my pulse goes up. So we start this, and then they would try to start doing me first, because if I waited, like I was skyrocketing, and like we took my pulse while we're hiking. I was at 82. But sitting
it's the white coat syndrome, it gets you.
Yeah, it got me. So we're in this bus, right? You take your last shower, and then you get in this bus with the windows open. It's 90 degrees. There's like 30 of you, all your porters and your helpers, and everybody from your group are on this bus. You're literally pitting out instantly.
It sounds like a great time.
And so you do this sign in. Actually, one of the coolest things is, so you sign in at every like checkpoint you get to, and you have to write your profession. So I was a lot of different things.
Of course you were.
Like what?
I was a dancer. Like a
exotic dancer.
Exotic dancer.
Of course you were.
Which I'm quite terrible at that, all of that.
I'm curious about this experience of these checkpoints and getting up higher, how your body feels, these strangers you're with. Like, what is this experience like?
Well, let me tell you about the strangers. Like, one of the coolest things about traveling are the people you meet. And when you do like a dive boat or climbing Kilimanjaro, you have this like little group that you're with, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, doing all these hard things together, and you become friends. It's the best part of traveling. So we would hike like from like 6 a.m. until 2 p.m. And these porters were amazing. We came back, our tent was set up for us, our beds were laid out, like our sleeping bag and sleep pads were laid out. And then we would go eat popcorn and play Yahtzee in our little like mess tent. And it was awesome. We had a little group. I mean, obviously it's a group of 15, so you all can't hang out like every time. But we had a little group that we walked with and played Yahtzee with. The first night we're at like, I think 9,000 feet, been there, done that. And then the next 3 nights we're at 13,000, and then you would hike to 15,000, hike high, sleep low. But you're getting to the point where like, if you just like move too fast, you have a headache. So it's like, okay, do everything slow. And for climbing Kilimanjaro, they say pole pole. It means slow, slow, and just keep going slow, and then sippy sippy, because you have to stay hydrated, but chugging water doesn't do you any good. So they just say, take slow, just sip constantly on your water, and it will help with altitude, dehydration, and just keep you ready to go. So it's hard. Well, I remember one day I had the worst headache, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I took ibuprofen. It sucked. But then the next day I'm singing Celine Dion with my friends and the porters, because like you have no service. You have like just music that's on your phone. And we're having the time of our life climbing this. And at every moment I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to succeed, because we still have summit day. You know, every day you're like hoping with the finger thing, like that you're not getting sent down. Like, so we took altitude sickness pills, which helped. And there were other people in our group who were not taking those, and their blood oxygen levels were like pretty low and they weren't feeling that great. People started feeling sick. Like we started getting really high, and not high, but so we're climbing this mountain and we're having this best time. Like we're meeting all these people, like our little group of Yahtzee players. And now it comes to summit day. So we wake up, we're at like 13,000 something. We hike for 6 hours and we get to 15,000 something. And that's called, well, I'll just refer to it as the base camp. And then they say, eat lunch and go take a nap, rest, whatever. Okay, so you take a nap and then you wake up, you have dinner, and they say, go back to sleep. So this is New Year's Eve. We woke up at 6 a.m., we hiked for 6 hours, we take a few naps, and then we eat dinner, go back to sleep, and at 10:30 we have to report to the mess tent. And we get another snack, and that is when we start our summit. So you bundle up because it's cold. It's cold at the top, and it can be, you don't know what the weather's actually going to be like.
What's the temperature like along the way? Like, what's the degree?
It's mountain temperature. So there were moments when it was like, I'm pitting out, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, and then literally 15 minutes later, a cloud comes over and the wind's coming and we're getting rain and hail, or like it's very, very different. Like during this nap time, it was like we're laying there in our underwear in our tent, like, oh my God, it's so hot. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like in my sleeping bag, freezing. And I will say one thing. Let me go back to mountain peeing. Like, so we're taking this altitude sickness pill, and it's a diuretic. So I when I go to sleep, I go to sleep. I don't wake up to pee in the night. But now I'm going twice in the night, and I'm also staying super hydrated. So you get out, you go to they had a little outhouse for us. I am grateful that I had to pee in the night, even though it was so cold, because it was clear. I have never seen so many stars. Like, I felt like I was like up close to them. I'm looking at the Big Dipper, and there's stars in between the other stars at the Big Dipper. It's like, oh my God. Like, I wish I could take a picture of it, but I can't because it's night and I'm freezing.
I mean, speaking of bodily fluids, like, you got to shit. What did that look like?
That's Kristine's favorite question, Brooke.
You know what?
She's been waiting for you to ask that.
Did I know to ask that, or did I know to ask that?
So our porters are amazing. They carried the majority of all of our stuff. Like there was a guy that like had like 50 things of eggs on his head, like just for us to eat. And there was also a porter who carried a toilet for us. Like it was amazing. Like so
He
nice.
literally carried your shit.
Well, they poured the shit out.
Okay, thank God.
But then carried the nasty toilet. And it had a covering, so it was like an outhouse, but a tent outhouse. So you would go in there, do your business, and everybody got a roll of toilet paper. That was yours that you had to carry with and like ration for your own. So like Brandon like couldn't wrap it around his hand and stuff. Like it's like save your one roll, man. You don't get any of mine. So yeah, we did our business in a porta potty, which was, you know, I normally dig holes. And
Yeah, that's nice.
So it was super nice. So we're taking a nap, then we wake up, have our dinner, and now it's 10:30 on New Year's Eve. Any other year, I would be here, probably 2 bottles of wine in, having a grand old time with my friends, putting on my snow pants, ready to just have a bonfire, right? Like literally right down over there. But there's no alcohol allowed on this whole journey, and we're bundling up. We got our headlamps on, but like, you know, winter hats, everything, and our trekking poles. And I had my bag of Cheetos.
Oh, yeah.
And backtracking on the bag of Cheetos, they say that you can lose your appetite at altitude. So bring something that you can never turn down. And for me, that is Cheetos. So I got 4 little baggies of Cheetos. So in my backpack, I'm ready to summit. I have my water bottle, which you have to like put in a sock so that it doesn't freeze because it's like 15 degrees while you're doing this. And I have 2 bags of Cheetos. Now, I wanted to have 4 bags of Cheetos, but while we were at O'Hare, And I had all my stuff in a carry-on bag for this 3-week trip. My carry-on was above the weight. So they were like, no, you have to check this bag. And I'm like, no, you're going to lose my bag. Like, I need to climb a mountain and I need this stuff and I can't just buy it when I get over there. So I went to the bathroom and I put on all my clothes. And in the process of putting on all my clothes, 2 of my bags of Cheetos broke open on the bathroom at O'Hare. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm down 2 bags of Cheetos. So
why didn't you just buy 2 more bags at
where, Brooke?
in O'Hare?
No, because they were 99 cents. At O'Hare, they're like $7.
All right, but you're like summiting a mountain and starving. It doesn't matter.
Right. No, so I got 2 bags still. So we're fine. All my clothes, all my shirt, I have my swimsuit, my underwear, and my bras in my pocket. Like, I sent like basically nothing because I'm like, I don't trust. They're going to lose my bag. So, and then some lady asked, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm dying of heat. So anyways, I have my Cheetos in my backpack and I'm summiting. And it's, now it's 11 and you're walking so slow and it's just switchbacks the whole way. And you can't even see it. Like, you literally can't see it because it's so pitch black. It's clear at this point. Like the stars, it's black, but there's stars everywhere. It's amazing. Now, one thing I would say is it was windy, very windy. So you're walking in one direction and it's like the wind is just going into your lungs. You turn around and it's like at your back. And so we're switchbacking back and forth. We're like in a little line, just like real slow. And then, it's New Year's Eve. Nobody's watching a clock. And then all of a sudden we hear cheering. And it's the porters and everybody who's down at our base camp. It's New Year's Eve. And we can hear this cheering from somewhere switchback land on the side of the last part of Kilimanjaro. And we turn around and down below in Moshi, we see fireworks going off. So we're like way above the fireworks. There's stars, there's some cheering down below and some fireworks that we are like way above. And we all just hugged each other. You just hugged who was next to you and it lasted 1 minute and you just kept going.
Wow. So how do you know, like, do they say you're getting close or they say a few minutes? Like, do you know or you just keep going?
No, we knew that most people summit after sunrise. So it was 10:30 at night when we started, and we were hoping to be at Stella Point by sunrise. And then from Stella Point, you have 40 more minutes after that.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, you can't even, woo, my gosh, it's New Year's, because you're going to get a headache and then you're going to have to get sent down. So we hugged and it was amazing. And like in the moment, it was very, very miserable and cold. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, can I keep hiking for 7 more hours right now? 7 more hours. So the beautifulness of the New Year's moment actually happens now when I think about it. Like the coolest New Year's I've ever done in my whole life. And it was not a party. But still the best New Year's I've ever had in my life. So we're going. We're still trekking. And you can start seeing the sun's coming up. Okay, it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And now I got to watch the sunrise on the first day of 2019 from above the clouds. Like the sun rising, like, and there's like cloud, you're like looking out through clouds and then like everything around you is like ice. So we're doing all of this hiking in pitch black. I thought literally it was a cliff over here. And then all of a sudden the sun comes out. I'm like, oh, I can't fall off this. Like, because I had no idea because it was just so dark.
That's terrifying.
And then back to the bathroom thing. So this whole time you still have to use the bathroom and all this stuff. And it's pitch black. It's freezing. You don't want to get a headache and you don't want to like overexert yourself. And our guides told us, ladies, the men just turn around and go. The ladies always try to like hike and find some privacy. They're like, no privacy. Don't waste your energy hiking somewhere to get privacy. Just drop and go. And it's like, okay, just turn your backs and I'm going to go right here, like right off the side. And so this group of strangers who are no longer strangers at this point, we have this thing, whether or not we make it to the top or not, we have this thing. We've been together for 7 days. Now, I've been with a lot of people for 7 days, but I have something special with these people. Like, we actually all decided to do Kilimanjaro summit on New Year's. And I actually asked this question when we were there. I'm like, why are you guys doing it? Because I knew why I was doing it. And I'm like, everyone else has got to have like, you don't just choose New Year's Day to summit.
What'd they say?
Nothing.
What?
Yeah. Nobody told me anything. So
maybe they just didn't want to go.
You were still strangers at that
we
point.
were still strangers.
You hadn't peed in front of them.
Right. We just held hands.
I feel like there's something beautiful though when you go through hardship, the people that you go through it with, there's just that bond that you have. Like you were with me at my lowest, I was with you, and I got you, you got me.
Right. So we were watching the sunrise from above the clouds. We made it to Stella Point at, I don't know, 6 something, and we summited so you're hiking switchbacks this whole time, and it's very steep, and we get to Stella Point, and there's a cool sign, but it's like, you're not done yet. And the last bit is not even that steep. It's just like a slope up. But oh my gosh, was it hard. We were just like, oh my, like just with our walking poles, and every step was like so hard. And we could see out at this point because the sun was there. It was New Year's morning, and I had never been up that early on New Year's morning before because I'm usually not feeling that great. And I did not feel great at this point, but I'm hiking. And then all of a sudden we saw the sign that said, congratulations. And now I feel fine. Now I'm jumping around. Now there's nothing about a headache, and I feel great.
Never been better.
Never been better. And, you take your picture next to the sign. I busted open my bag of Cheetos that I needed to have. And it was super fat and exploded from the pressure or non-pressure up there. And so I had my bag of Cheetos in my backpack. And then I had Brandon's grandpa's Tilly hat that was given to me by his grandma, or from his grandma. And he had been to Africa before with that Tilly hat. And I was wearing a winter hat, so I couldn't wear it, but I wore it the whole rest of the time. I take it everywhere with me. And so I took a picture with my Cheetos, and I took a picture with this George's Tilly hat. And and then we just kind of walked down. I'm like, oh my gosh, how was I so miserable 20 minutes ago? It was so hard. And now I'm doing jumping jacks and flips, and everyone's like, oh, cool, we summited Kilimanjaro, blah, blah, blah. And then you hike for 4 more hours back down and then you take a nap for 2 hours, and then you hike another 4 hours down to 9,000 feet. And so you still camp so you're still hiking the whole rest of the day, but it's nothing anymore because you
did it.
Summited Kilimanjaro. And it's amazing because I summited. It's cool. But really, my whole story is about the journey to the top.
Yeah.
So it's amazing because we're only at the top for 20 minutes. We summited. It was cool. It was cloudy. You couldn't hardly see out. But we're next to this sign that says, you made it to the top. And we hike our way down. And when I think about it afterwards, what I loved the most about Kilimanjaro was not even summiting. I mean, I'm glad I did because I obviously put a lot of importance on that. But it was the journey. It was the Yahtzee, and it was the friends, and it was the pulse ox thing. And I think back, when I think back on Kilimanjaro and that whole experience, my thoughts don't actually go to the summit. It goes to Barranca Wall. It goes to the food. It goes to the porters. It goes to the little dance parties, my Celine Dioning. And so Kilimanjaro was this amazing summit, but the journey was actually the best part, which is just like life. There were times where it was so hard, climbing, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. My heart rate's at 140, or I had this terrible headache. But when I actually think about what I loved the most from that whole climbing Kilimanjaro, it was actually the journey. Not the summit, but I'm grateful that I succeeded at that.
Yeah, I'm wondering in those moments when it was so difficult, right? It's looking back, you think about the good times, how much joy it brought you, but there were some really dark moments that you had to get through. I'm thinking of all of the listeners, myself included, how the hell did you have the mental grit and tenacity to get through that? So what did that look like? How did you keep yourself going?
I didn't want to fail. And there was I wasn't being sent down. Because obviously if they sent me down, I was going to go down because I don't want to die. It's like running a marathon. At any point, it's hard. You want to quit. Your body wants to quit. Your knees hurt. Your legs hurt. You're out of breath. Your head is pounding. But I'm like, I'm not going to quit, because you wanted to complete it. There's no reason to run a marathon and get to the end. There's no reason to actually summit Kilimanjaro. It's just because you want it so bad.
You know what's so interesting to think about is the reason that you succeeded was because you were focusing on the destination. That's what got you there. And then when you're done, that's not what you're focusing on at all. Or it's windy and it's dark and it's unpredictable and you're peeing in front of people and you think it's terrible in the moment. And then that's the beauty in all of it eventually. But if you didn't think about the destination, if you didn't have that goal or that something to look forward to or that accomplishment, like you might not have.
I wouldn't have had the journey at all. Like with a lot of things, if you don't set out with some sort of goal, like even if you don't make it, even if I would have been turned down at, the night before summit and we had a pact, Brandon and I had a pact, like if one person gets turned away, the other will still go. Like it's, and I was hoping it wasn't me. And it still would have been beautiful. It would have been actually really hard in the moment, but like I would have still had days of Yahtzee, and maybe it wouldn't have been as beautiful if I didn't succeed. But the journey is actually the best part. Like right now in life, I feel like an old wise woman. It sucked so much, but I actually, thinking back on it as a wise old 36-year-old, I wouldn't change it. It was really hard, but I wouldn't change it, because if I changed it at all, I wouldn't have what I have now.
Yeah. So we left off where you and Brandon had just started the adoption process, and then you go to Africa. And so now you're back. You did it. You summited. Now what?
So we did our classes. We had physicals. I had a chest x-ray to make sure I didn't have TB because I went to Africa. And we got our house inspected. We got a bunch of fire extinguishers. And we have a beautiful pamphlet. We look like we're a VRBO. Like, hey, we're so great. And then all of a sudden, somebody wants to match with us. A young lady has like looked at our profile and she's like, you know what? I want to match with you. And we did. It was exciting. It was in August. So we went to Africa, obviously, in December, January. So by August, we had matched with somebody. And it was great. She was due in January. And then like September 20th, she changed her mind. So it was another loss. And Brandon was out west elk hunting, had no service. I got the call from our social worker, and he had no clue. He went to Colorado thinking we're getting a baby in January. And so by myself, I took this news of another loss. But it wasn't that bad. I didn't fall into a hole like I had done previously. I don't know. It was just like, okay, that sucks. Like I became so much stronger. Like, so Kilimanjaro was important for a lot of things, but for some reason it made me stronger. I can just handle things better, because 3 years prior, I would have fallen into a pit hole of unhappiness, meanness, just crabbiness. But I just went to work the next day and I was fine. And then Brandon got home a week later and I let him know. And it was like, okay. So then we had another little partial match. And then we're like, you know what? We need a break. It's the emotional toll it was taking on us doing these visits with birth mothers. It was hard. And so we decided to take a break. But then we got an email. It was October sometime. And we got an email from our social worker saying, there is a family and there was a baby girl born last week. They would like to meet you. And we're like, no, we are on a break from this. So we went into our hot tub and chatted and we're like, fine, we'll just do this. Like, we have to do this. And so we scheduled a Halloween day visit, which actually kind of messed up my Halloween plans because I was going to wear a wig to work. And I'm like, I can't have wig hair at this meeting that's in the afternoon. So it blew my wig plans. So we met this family, and okay, we leave. They were going to interview 2 more families after us. Brandon goes on his deer hunting thing, and on my way home from work that day, I get a call from our social worker. They are canceling their meetings tomorrow, and they are choosing you. I'm like, what? So I call Brandon. He ignores. Call him again. He ignores it. Call him again. He ignores it. I just like kept calling him, and then finally he answers. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, they're choosing us, and we get to get a baby on Monday. And he's like, I'm standing over a deer. Like he had just shot a deer. He's like, so what, he's like, what do we do? Like, should I come home? I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, just keep doing your hunting thing. Like I think I called you and Alicia, and I'm like, what do I need?
I think you were in shock.
Yeah.
I honestly think, and I also think that when you had the loss of the baby that you thought you were going to have with the first match, I feel like you were also in shock. I feel like you were almost like numb at that point.
Definitely numb. That's a good word.
You're saying it wasn't that bad, but I think that you were you had so many walls up that you were assuming it wasn't going to work. Probably. Until they're like, you're getting a baby in 3 days.
Yeah.
I think you were so closed off that the idea, that it would actually come to fruition.
Because we're talking a half decade of thinking it's going to happen. And we're there. Woo, we got a heartbeat. Or, ooh. And then,
would you agree with that? Like, do you
yes.
feel like that's where you were like, I can't be hurt anymore because I've been hurt so much type of thing?
Right. I'm just like one big scar, So we're getting our baby on Monday. And we are going to a Celine Dion concert on Sunday. So as where most other mothers spend their last day of not having a kid, in a hospital, in pain, I was at a Celine Dion concert.
You deserve that after all you've been through.
And it was amazing because I love Celine Dion. I was with Brandon's grandma, your grandma, for her. It was a 90th birthday thing. And it was the best way to end non-parenthood. It was amazing. We didn't have to get a sitter. We went to Celine Dion. We woke up the next day. My hair was still curled, and I picked up my little baby. And it's the best thing ever. And I would not change anything. As miserable as all that time was, as much money as we wasted, it was not a waste. It made me who I am, and I am an old, wise woman. And I love it because I would not have. I love who I am, and I would not have loved myself, and I didn't for so long. I love who I am right now, and I get to live the rest of my life being myself, and I love it. And I don't think I would have loved myself like this if things had just worked out.
And now you have baby Hanalei, who is so lucky to have such an amazing, incredible mama like you.
Yes, she is.
Well, I love that all of this got you here. I hate that you had to go through it, but I'm glad that you're at this space where it sounds like you're at peace with it. And I am curious to hear, if anybody that's struggling right now, whether it's infertility or anything else right now, what would you say to them to kind of encourage them during this dark time?
So what I did here through everything is it'll be okay or it'll work out. But actually it doesn't. And it's not actually always okay. And to think that is actually harder. So I don't even know what I would say to somebody. But when it's really bad, you are growing. And it can get better. It might not get better.
So through you going through all of this, you taught me a lot. Because I had a miscarriage, and all I needed was, I didn't need flowers, and I didn't need anybody to tell me things were going to be okay, because they weren't. But you sent me a card that said, this sucks, and you sent me a box of tissues, which I really needed, and some chocolate, because I love it. It was so perfect because it clearly came from someone that's been through something, and that knows. I don't need you to tell me I should be grateful. I don't need you to even really say sorry. I just needed to be able to just cry and eat some chocolate. And so I think part of the message I've learned from you is the way to approach these situations in hardship, whether it's infertility or loss or grief or whatever it is that you don't really have the words for people because it's not your journey and you're not in that moment anymore. So even though you've gone through this, like, you don't know exactly what to say to someone that's going through anything because it's their moment and their experience. And so I just want to thank you for helping me through that time, and that by you going through this, it helped me tremendously. Just the fact that you were there and you didn't try and tell me how to feel or what my next step was.
When I think back on even who I am right now, like what could I have, if I had the opportunity to hang out with myself 5 years ago, 6 years ago, even 2 years ago, I don't know what I would have said to myself. It was something that sucked, and I just had to go through it. And I say I, as in, I feel like so much, I had a lot more issues than what Brandon was going through. It's definitely a coupleship when you're dealing with infertility, but like I specifically was told, you are not worthy because you are an X-Men, which is also super cool because I'm excited about that. But I don't know that I would have even said anything to myself, like as myself, because I don't think that not anything would have worked. It was just something, I had to be crappy. I had to be mean. I had to be jealous to be who I am right now. And it's terrible because I spent the beginning of my marriage like fighting with my husband just because things were hard. And I say I, but it's all a we thing. And one thing I do know about my marriage is we went through something terrible. And, you know, it got hard, but we made it through. And I know that we're good to go. I wouldn't actually change a thing. And I wouldn't say anything to myself because like we just said, there's like nothing you can say. There's no words, even from myself to my old self. There's nothing that I would have even listened to in those moments because it's life and you just have to keep doing it.
So how would you explain your life now? What does it look like now compared to how it was 5 years ago?
I'm a mom. I love my job. I'm doing what I want to do at work. I get to take a little gal to show her the world and everything that I love and Brandon loves. We go to Colorado, we go camping. It's great. And here's what's funny is I like to categorize my life. I have a work life, I have a marriage life, I have a friend life, or all these categories. It's like saying, oh no, I can't eat my vegetables because my vegetable stomach is full, but I do need dessert still. When one thing goes wrong, like I'm a woman. When my home life, when I'm struggling at work too. I think like work could suck right now, but because I finally have Hanley and I wanted her so bad in my life, everything is great. Like,
yeah. I mean, it was interfere. Like, how can it not interfere? You're wrecked because of what's happening to your body and to your mind and your emotions. And then you have to go to work. Why wouldn't work suck?
Right.
Right. And then you have Hanalei, who makes everything better. Literally the happiest child on the planet, who loves camping and rubbing dirt on her legs.
Right.
And playing with worms and fish. But you're creating a life for her that is so beautiful. And I love how you're capturing it and showing her that you can be a parent and take your kids anywhere, and that you can be whoever you want to be. And now she's going to get to hear about this journey, right? And these beautiful things you're doing and how you maximized your experience by booking a trip and making something out of your life when you were handed such a crappy card that eventually got you to her. And I'm just so happy for the life that now you're able to create for Hanalei. It's beautiful.
Like, I think back on if we got pregnant right away, like a lot of people do, I wouldn't have gone to all these places. I wouldn't become who I am, and I would not be the mother that I get to be right now. Touching back on like how excited I am, I get to live the rest of my life like who I am right now. it was important that I dealt with, and not everybody needs to deal with that. But for me, it needed to happen. And I get to be her mom, and I'm so much stronger.
Well, I have been waiting for this moment for so long, and I'm so happy that you were finally ready to share your story. And I feel so blessed to be in your life, to have both of you. I don't have sisters, and you guys are my sisters, and I know that I can get through anything because I have you two, and it makes me emotional. And so thank you.
Cry it out.
We love you, Brooke. Yes, thank you for sharing your story. A lot of people, this is like just way too hard to go back into and to reflect on it and think about it and put yourself back there. And so I know you're not into being all vulnerable and stuff, so I really appreciate you sharing your story with our listeners.
Thanks for having me. Obviously, you guys know my story, and we've had many laying on beds chatting about all this stuff, but I'm happy to share it now because I feel like it's not shared. And I think a big portion of my hardship was having to do everything so privately, or feeling like I was supposed to be private with it. And you don't have to. Like, people are here for you. They listen, and other people are going through this too. And will listen. Not that there's anything you can really say, but you should not hold it in. And you're not alone. You get your story out there, and there are other people. And just knowing somebody else maybe understands like 1% of what you're going through actually helps. It really, it helps, even though there's nothing to say. And it's nice to not feel alone. Mm-hmm. It really, that's really all that helps, is like, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think it takes being vulnerable to do that, and it's scary, but it's worth it.
It is worth it.
All right. Well, it's time for our 3 gold stars.
1, always plan an adventure to look forward to. 2, find gratitude by knowing it could be worse. 3, and this one's hard to do in the moment, remind yourself that when it is hard and uncomfortable, you're actually growing as a person, which you might not actually realize until after the fact. But if you can try to think of that in the moment, then it maybe could be helpful.
Next up, Unleashing Ivy. These are rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
No.
Are you ready?
Oh, you're going to have to be.
Okay.
Number 1, Kristine. When you're really struggling with doubt or negative thoughts, what's one thing that steers you in a positive direction?
Is this how I used to or how I do it now?
Both.
Okay. How I used to was, I literally am grateful for my health. Like, through all of this bad stuff, or when work was sucking and all of this other stuff, I'm, knock on wood, I'm healthy, and I'm grateful for that. And what really got Brandon and I through some of these really hard times was, we just can't have a kid, or I can't pass a test, but we're healthy, and everything else is really great. We're really, really grateful for our health and our ability to be healthy enough to go do these hobbies that make us happy in the hard times.
All right, next question. Kristine, what are you most excited about in this next chapter of your life?
Like the Hanalei chapter? Showing her the world. We love her. We love the world. The world has so much to offer. Nature, other countries, food, even though that's not my big thing. But I like to venture out, just doing everything.
And last question. What's one thing you wish you would have known sooner?
Nothing.
Why?
Like, because I don't think anything would have helped. It just...
You think you learned exactly what you needed to learn at the exact time you did it?
I did. And that's why I'm an old, wise owl.
A 36-year-old.
I feel very wise. And like, old people, gotta love them, right? I'm getting to be one of them. I'm grateful that I'm getting to be one of them. But you learn so much. The more time you're here and the more things that suck, the wiser you get.
Amen.
Kristine, I love you. I'm so happy you were here today.
Ditto.
Thanks for having me.
And you know how we finish every episode is with a piece of gold. Would you like to share one with our listeners?
I would. This quote is from John Muir, and he's actually my birthday twin, a couple years ahead of me. But climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will drop away from you like the leaves of autumn.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.